Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for joining us today for this webinar on student-led IEPs. My name is Karrie Potter, and I am an educational support coach here at Family Matters. And just for the sake of time, I think people are still coming on, it looks like, but for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, today we're going to be going over student-led IEPs and just different strategies that would be helpful to know. And so first, I really wanted to go over with you kind of what Family Matters does. So first, I just want to note that Family Matters Parent Training Information Center is not a legal service agency, and we cannot provide legal advice or any legal guidance. So any information received today or any time through Family Matters should not be perceived as legal advice. So Family Matters, we are one of two parent centers in the state of Illinois. There's at least one parent center in every state. So as I said, Illinois has two. So at Family Matters, we cover 94 counties in the state. And then FRCD is the Family Resource Center on Disabilities, and they cover a handful of counties in the Chicago area. So, um, you know, you can reach out to either parent center wherever you fall as far as what county you reside in would tell you what parent center serves your area. And so here at Family Matters, we offer a lot of different services and trainings and things like that. So I just wanted to go over that with you. First, we offer an education advocacy helpline. So, myself and Abby Mars are educational support coaches, and we partner with families and self advocates who are seeking guidance and support in navigating the special education process. So, a lot of what I do is talk to families on the phone or even professionals, self advocates. We may do record reviews just to kind of get an idea of what's in the IEP, help parents understand that IEP process. We're self advocates. So that's one service that we provide. We also we partner with the Illinois State Board of Education, Family Matters does, and that is to provide training for educational surrogate parents or ESPs in Illinois. And so this program recruits and trains volunteers throughout the state who agree to step in and provide special education advocacy and support for students between the ages of 3 through 21. And then those students would be those who are youth in care or who are unaccompanied homeless youth or whose parents cannot be identified or located. If you want more information, if you think becoming an educational surrogate parent is something you're interested in, you can contact our office and get more information about that, or even refer to our website. And then we also offer what we call Compass currently. That's ongoing right now, and we offer it once per year. So this Compass stands for Coaching Others and Mentoring Parents About School Services. So through the Compass training, it was formerly called a volunteer advocacy program or training. Through this, like I said, we currently offer it annually, and Family Matters partners with individuals who are interested in providing support and mentoring on a volunteer basis for students and families across the state who are seeking assistance in navigating the special education process or seeking some type of support through that process. So when you sign up for our Compass training, participants are committing to participate in, currently a 10 online sessions. They're all virtual, and they focus on core issues and challenges in special education. So again, for more information, more detailed information, you can visit our website. Again, we're in the process of providing the Compass training currently, but if you're interested for next year, you could let us know. We could put you on a list just so that you're aware when the opportunity comes up. We also offer a training series. We use a curriculum that we were trained on through Daisy on data. And so this training, we'll probably offer it again in the summer. So you can be on the lookout for that, but it helps families whose children are like birth through 5 years old to really kind of understand the importance of data, what data is, and how that could be used maybe to make, changes not only for their own child, but even system-wide changes. So that's another type of training that we offer. Um, we also offer a variety of special education trainings. There's a list of topics on our website. You can view that. So if you're interested in a special education related training, requesting one, take a look at our website. If there's something you're looking for that's not on there, let us know and we can, see if that's something that we can provide. So jumping into our session for today, our goal for today, we hope that at the end of today's training, that you would be able to identify 3 reasons why um, student-led IEPs are important. So we want you to walk away knowing 3 reasons to why student-led IEPs are important, and then to be able to list 5 key strategies to help engage students in the IEP planning process. And we also want you to be able to list 3 ways that a student can participate in the IEP process, and also just to increase your awareness of 3 resources that can assist students in and IEP teams in increasing student engagement. So those are just kind of some things to keep in mind while you're listening to today's presentation and participating. So I do want to say the webinar is being recorded and it will be archived on our website. You can go ahead and use the Q&A box for questions, and then questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. And then, at the end, you will get a survey. So please fill that out. It's just a brief survey and it really helps us understand, how we can improve our services, how our services are currently, and if we can improve them, what you look to see from us in the future, things like that. So please take a minute to fill that out. Okay, so in getting started, I just wanted you to think about what the most recent IEP meeting you attended. Like, just think about the most recent IEP meeting you've attended and just consider the questions below. You can put your answers in the chat or in the Q&A, but just think about, what team members attended that meeting, who participated in the meeting the most, who participated the least. So if you think about all of the team members, who did most of the talking, who did the least amount of the talking, and how would you define participation? So those are just things that I want you to keep in mind, while we go through this training today. And then at the end or further into the training, we'll kind of come back to these questions. But if you have thoughts on this, definitely feel free to share those. Like I said, we'll use this information again a little later in the training. And so I think it's important to understand who the IEP team is, who's included in that IEP process. So there are multiple different team members, and all of the team members are equal members, and they're all coming together to work and focus on the student. The student is the center of the IEP. The IEP is written for them. So who are the members? So the first you would think about is parent or guardian. They're a required participant of the IEP meeting. You also must include a general education teacher who has knowledge of the curriculum and who's able and information regarding interventions that are being provided. A special education teacher should be involved in the meeting, who's familiar with provided interventions and who's going to be responsible for implementing the IEP. There's also, an LEA representative. This person must know about general education curriculum and be able to ensure that the IEP is being implemented. And then also the LEA is also a person who has authority to commit to services. You also have like evaluation personnel who can be involved in the IEP meeting. So if evaluations are being done, when evaluation info is going to be discussed, say a student has maybe a speech and language evaluation completed, you would want somebody there like the speech pathologist who can explain the evaluation data or information and test results to the IEP team. You want somebody there who's knowledgeable about that. You can also have others with knowledge or expertise, special expertise about the student. And if you look at the Illinois State Board of Education's parent guide, it describes this. It says that parents or the school may bring other people to the IEP team meeting, such as community service providers. It could be an advocate, lawyer, friend for support, etc. So, and then the parent guide also says that the law says these people must have some knowledge of or special expertise regarding that student or your child, and the determination of whether the person has special knowledge must be made by the party who invited the individual to participate in that IEP meeting. And then last but not least, the student, a child or student, the student may attend and participate in an IEP meeting if a parent decides they should be there or participate. And then a student who has reached the age of 14 and a half must be invited to the IEP meeting when transition is discussed. That's, written in the parent guide. There are other resources you can find at the bottom of the screen. There's a link for, resources for rights law. They have different information pertaining to this as well. So I think it's important to remember that the student is the I in the IEP. The student, like we said, they're listed as a member of the IEP team, and the IEP is written about them. So they are the I in IEP. That IEP is created with them in mind, and it's specific to that individual student. So it's important for them to be included in their IEP meetings. And then, transition begins in Illinois at the age of 14 and a half and continues until that student graduates. And so, you don't have to just think about including or starting the student in being familiar and comfortable with the IEP process at 14 and a half. You can definitely start earlier and, talk to them about their IEP, have them involved at some level in their IEP meeting at a younger age. So if you look at this chart, you can find it on the Iris Center website. There's a link down at the bottom of the PowerPoint citing that. But this kind of breaks down the student involvement in IEP meetings. So if you visit the Iris Center website, it states that this graph it illustrates the findings from a large-scale study that was done of more than 1,000 students or 11,000 students. And so those students were between the ages of 14 and 22. And, if you look at the chart, although 94.5% of students attended their IEP meetings, only 12.2% offered significant input is what it's showing us. So, ideally, as you move along, as the student moves along and grows and is getting closer to graduation and leaving school, you want them to become more actively involved in the IEP process, attending their IEP meetings, as a self-advocate or advocating for their interest and what their needs are and what their preferences are for life after high school, or even, services have a role in partaking in identifying like what they need in high school to help them plan for adult life for when they exit high school. So if you really look at it, it's saying that, 57.7% of students attended meetings and provided some input. 5.5% don't attend meetings at all, or do not attend meetings and do not provide any input. 12.2% we said attend meetings and provide significant input. They take a leadership role in the planning process according to the study. And then 24.6% attend meetings but provide little to no input. So just kind of think about, if you are a student, think about where you fall on this chart. What category would you fall into? And is there room to improve? What's the next step to take to be more involved as a student in your IEP process? Or if you're a parent, you can think about, okay, where would my student fit in? Looking at this graph, what category would they fall into? Do they attend not at all? Do they attend some and just provide a little input? Could they take a more active role? As a parent, how could I help my student or my child and encourage them to be build on their active role that they play in their IEP meeting? Could they, start by just attending briefly? And if you're a teacher or a professional, work in the school system and attend IEP meetings, think about the students you serve and where do they fall on the chart, and how could you encourage more active participation and involvement in those IEP meetings? So, we want to think about, why is it important for students to be engaged and participate meaningful in their meetings? First of all, the goals are typically, we want students to build on their skills and be more independent and build those independent skills. You want them, to prepare as much as possible for adult life. So, asking what you need and when you need it is a core life skill. You're advocating for yourself. And IEP meetings really are the perfect environment to safely practice self advocacy skills. Students can talk about, it's kind of a safe place to talk with people that about, what's working for me, what's not. You can involve students in conversations about, you know, what is their IEP? Do they really have a good feel for what their IEP is and why it's written? Why everybody meets, and, you know, when decisions are made about accommodations, modifications, and different supports, the student could have an involvement in discussing, if you really break down, like, these are the supports you receive right now. How do you feel about those? Are those helping you? Are there some that you don't think you really need or could be, altered? Those working on those skills and being involved in that conversation can really help build those self-advocacy skills and help a student really think about, the accommodations they need and how to ask for them. And you want to remember that the IEP really is the student's meeting. If you think about the phrase "nothing about me without me," um, it's important for students to be involved in their IEP meetings, and you want the meetings to focus on their needs and their goals and interests and their strengths and what they find challenging or more difficult. Um, so those are all things like, the meetings about that student. So why not invite them and let them help lead that and help them learn to lead conversation, because those skills, building those skills during the IEP years and school years is going to be helpful in adult life when maybe they need accommodations and supports in a job or in the community and things like that. And really, like, who better to speak to these topics than a student? Because they're living it and using those accommodations and supports. So, we can get a lot of great information from students. And then just when we all work together and all participants, including a student, are at the same table, it's easier to create and develop a shared understanding of what supports are needed and how they can best be implemented, just having those conversations. So those are all reasons that, it's important to have that meaningful participation. And research also shows us that, just the same as their peers, students with more significant disabilities who lead their own IEP meetings develop those stronger self-determination skills and acquire greater knowledge about post-secondary transition. So, you know, they're going to be more prepared, and have more skills as they exit high school and go into their community and adult life. So, research shows us that this works and really does help, students with disabilities prepare for adult life. So there might be many reasons that students want to avoid IEP meetings. Um, maybe a student isn't specifically invited. They may know they have an IEP meeting, but they're not necessarily invited to it, or they don't really know what to expect. A lot of times we hear that, maybe students are like, I know I have an IEP, but I don't really know what it's for. I know I get supports, and things like that, but I don't really understand it. Maybe they don't really know that they could have a voice, in that IEP meeting and kind of give input and work with the team. And it could be overwhelming sometimes. It's a whole, they may feel like it's a whole team of people that are talking about them. meeting to discuss what supports and services they need, and that can be overwhelming. Maybe they don't really understand everybody's role in the IEP team, or maybe they don't feel prepared. Sometimes it's helpful to, prepare a student for participating in their IEP meeting so that they feel a little more ready and not so nervous about it. So, some students may have notes on an iPad or, kind of a Chromebook or something to kind of and have it broke down as during this part of the IEP meeting, I want to share this. I want to share like these are my concerns, or during this part, I want to share these are the things that I find helpful, or this is the technology that helps me access the curriculum and be included. So, just helping a student prepare, whether that be the parents or teachers or different members of the IEP meeting all coming together to help that student feel prepared can be helpful, so that they're more comfortable participating in a meeting. Maybe a student has had bad experiences in the past, um, but again, you could talk to them about working through that and how could we make it better? What was your bad experience in the past and how could we work toward making that better? A student might feel anxious and self-conscious listening to the team talk about them. A lot of information is talked about at the IEP meeting, from strengths to areas of difficulty, what services are needed, future goals, things like that. So really kind of explaining to them, why things are being talked about and, how this helps them get the services they need and supports they need could be helpful. And then, again, like we said, maybe they don't feel prepared. Also, it may be that they don't have a plan in place to support them in participating in that meeting. So just thinking of like what kind of plan would help support that student so that they could participate. Maybe again, we said it could be that they have notes on an iPad and people cue them like, okay, this is the section where you're going to share these notes. We're going to talk about this now. What do you have to share about that? And if you have any other ideas on why students may avoid participation in IEP meetings, please feel free to share those and you can type something in the Q&A. I'll give you just a second in case anybody wants to share. Okay, so somebody shared that the student may not understand or know their rights. So yeah, that's something where as a parent or, another IEP team member, students can be made more aware of their rights and understand just again that the IEP is about them. They are the I in IEP. You can even look to us as your parent center if you're looking for, training or ways to approach teaching students about their rights and IEP participation. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we really want to think about, there can be barriers to why students may not feel comfortable or may not fully participate in their IEP meetings, but we want to think about what can we do to increase that student participation time. So, again, in the beginning, I asked you those questions, just think about the questions when you're reviewing that chart about, what team members attended, who participated the most, who participated the least, and how do you define participation? So when we're thinking about that, a lot of times like students may not attend IEP meetings, they may not participate a lot. There is this study that was done, or research done that shows that who broke down who talks typically at an IEP meeting. So it looks like, only 3% of students or 3% of the time students are talking in those IEP meetings. The special education teachers probably leading the meeting 51% of the time, it looks like. General education teachers speaking 9% of the time, administrators 9% of the time. Family comes in at 15%. And then support staff 6%. So if we want to take a focus on student-led IEP meetings, we want to increase that percentage of time that the students are talking. There can be, according to this chart, I think this would be more of an educator-led IEP meeting. And with a student-led IEP meeting, you're looking at, how do we increase the amount of time that student is participating and sharing in that meeting. And I think, sometimes it can feel like, gosh, my student's getting older. They've not participated in these IEP meetings, and it can feel overwhelming. Like, where do I start? But I think it's good to remember it's never too early or too late to start including students in their IEP meetings or trying to increase their involvement in their meetings. So just keep in mind, it's never too late to start. And on the flip side of that, it's never too early. You can start when children are younger. So let's think about what we can do as parents and caregivers and professionals to really increase that participation time. Again, you can get students involved early. We're seeing a lot more. I did a training a couple years ago where staff were talking about really starting to get students involved in the IEP process as early as like preschool or early childhood. And it may be minimal involvement, but then, they're really getting those students involved just to kind of get them used to it and then trying to build those skills through the years so that it's not so foreign to them as they reach, transition age at 14 and a half. You can make student participation a priority, really looking at ways throughout the years to involve them and get them, comfortable with participating in those IEP meetings, and then just regularly assessing the process and adjusting as needed. So, you may find that, certain supports we talked about, a student may need supports to participate fully and meaningfully in their IEP meeting. But you may think this is going to work to support that student and it may not work. So just regularly, visiting with that student and assessing, is this process working? Is there a different support that can be provided? What do we need to adjust to make this more meaningful for that student to participate? And, really you can start small, like we said, at any age, start with, look at where you're at and just start and small and keep building on it. Sometimes some students may jump in and be more comfortable with it. Some may need more time to build up, to feeling more comfortable with fully being at an entire IEP meeting. So there's different keys to success in student engagement. You really want to look at, focusing on strengths. Is the communication during the IEP meeting strength-based? And, really being authentic and including the student in your efforts to engage that student. There's a lot of different things to talk about in the IEP meeting. So, you may be talking about, you want to focus on strengths, but you also have to talk about areas that a student is struggling. So maybe, they're in high school, but they're doing maybe a fifth grade level math or something. And, that may be kind of difficult to hear those numbers or those discrepancies in an IEP meeting. So they may have questions about that. You could really point out like, yes, you do struggle in this area, but look, you've learned this and this and this in the area of math. Like you're building on those skills, and our goal is to help you keep closing that gap between where you are and where you want to be, and really focus on their strengths. You can also take opportunities to plan ahead with the student, ask for their feedback on scheduling, on the agenda topics. If you create an agenda to help them understand the flow of the IEP meeting, get their input on the IEP agenda and what they think would be helpful to be on that agenda. The student could be involved in giving out team member invitations. They can also be involved in goal setting. So, I've heard of some students helping write goals for adaptive PE. Maybe they're a junior or senior in high school and they know, hey, I need to stay active when I leave high school. That's important to me due to my health and medical conditions. So right now I get PE 5 days a week, so I'm active. But when I leave high school, what am I going to do? So maybe they could, help their adaptive PE teacher create goals and learn a routine for exercise that they can take with them after high school. It's something that's preparing them for adult life when high school ends. And they're also kind of taking ownership in that process. And so that could be a helpful thing, giving them opportunities to, be a part of that process and not feel like things are just written, for them. Flexibility is another area that can help, be a key to success. Support the student to communicate in a way that's comfortable for them. Are they good with text or writing? Would they do well with sharing their input through a video, eye gaze, or teach text to speech? Just kind of like look at what tools can we utilize and take time to meet that student's needs with communicating during an IEP meeting. And then preparing, really just working with the student and the team members ahead of time to adjust expectations and really just set a positive and productive tone. When you're looking at, we talked about communication and student involvement. Sometimes I've seen where it helps students to do some type of a person-centered plan. And that's a process that maybe they would do before the IEP meeting, but then share that person-centered plan, because that really covers like, what's your history? What are your celebrations, things you're proud of that you've accomplished? What are your fears? What are things you struggle with? What helps you to be successful? Who's your support team? What are your goals for, the next year or 5 years or what have you? So that may be a way to help a student take ownership. And if you want to learn more about person-centered planning, you can contact our office. We'd be happy to, discuss that with you. So we really want to think about, concrete ways to involve students in their IEP meetings. So this is an example from I'm Determined. And then we'll have links to the resources on the resource page. And I'll also email out information and resources this week after the webinar, so that you'll have links to different information. But, you can use rubric like this for IEP participation and really assess what are the student support needs. What are their abilities and disabilities awareness? What do they know currently, and how can we build that? Like really taking time to assess where are they at and how could we build on preparing them and in participating in their IEP meeting. So on this slide, you'll find a lot of different ways that students can be involved in their IEP meetings. Maybe they could take notes in some way. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to, handwrite notes, but there might be different ways that they could take notes. Like we said before, they can invite participants. So maybe they're in charge of inviting the different members of the IEP team. Like we said, there are a lot of different members on the IEP team, and when a student invites the participants, it would help them understand, maybe the role of those different IEP team members, and maybe make it a little less overwhelming or intimidating to be at a meeting or an IEP meeting with all of these participants. They might feel like they know them a little more. The student could facilitate the meeting, kind of run the meeting, and maybe they would need support to do so, but like maybe cues or notes or things like that to help them facilitate that meeting. Bringing snacks is another thing that a student could think to do. A student can present priorities, like what are their priorities for the IEP meeting? What are their priorities for the school year? If they have a summary of the school year, if you have a meeting toward the end of the school year or the end of the IEP, maybe they can provide a summary of what they think has went well, what they've accomplished, what they still want to work on. And that's something that could be prepared prior to the meeting. So maybe they have present a video or play a video that shares their summary of the year. Again, we said, they can write draft goals. So, if they're struggling, if math is an area of difficulty, maybe they could sit down with the math teacher or the special education teacher or somebody and really think about, okay, what do I struggling with now? What do I hope to learn in a year's time? And be a part of writing those goals. And again, that will get them more familiar with that IEP process and help them, take more ownership in it and see it more as a plan, um, and understand that IEP more. So the student can also help assess meeting effectiveness. You can ask the student how they feel it went. Is there anything that could improve it? Running that meeting, they can invite different people to support them in the meeting. I've heard of sometimes peers of the students who are in classes with them have great ideas for accommodations and supports and can provide input and support to that for that student in the IEP meeting. Again, developing the agenda, they can be a part of, helping develop the agenda would help them break down the steps of the IEP meeting process and kind of understand how that meeting is going to flow. And then students can also develop and present student portfolios. So a portfolio about their accomplishments, their goals in life, that can be a possibility too. Do you have any other ways that you think a student could be involved in their IEP meeting? If so, go ahead and you can type that in the Q&A because I would love to hear any input from you on this. If you have anything, go ahead and type that in the chat. I will move forward, or in the Q&A, we'll move forward. I wanted to share this with you since we did talk about portfolios as a possible way for students to be more involved and participate meaningfully in their IEP meetings. We did just present, or what we have a training coming up on February 6th. And that will cover portfolios for transition age students. So that's coming up here pretty quickly. So if you are interested in that, definitely go to our website and register for that. And then again, if you can't make the live version, it will be archived on our website. So we really do want to prepare students for success, and there are different ways to do that. So we can review the IEP process and document with a student. So, before a meeting or after a meeting, either way, you can help a student by kind of reviewing that information so they have an understanding of what that document looks like, what the IEP process is going to look like, what the flow of the meeting typically is. And then, again, prepare an agenda together. If a student has an agenda, it may help them follow along so they know what's coming next during that meeting. And if they're part of that, creating that agenda, that's going to help them, be prepared for that meeting. And then you could consider showing a video of an IEP meeting to a student prior to a meeting. So that may give them more of a visual of what that IEP meeting could look like generally. And then clearly just decide on a role and define a role that that student is comfortable with. You want to ensure that it's a positive experience. So like we said, sometimes you may start small and build on that. Once, you start at a certain point, you may always be looking and asking like, how can we include the student, or ask the student, how can we include you? And how can we get you to participate more? How can we build on what you're already doing? What would be a next step for you that you would be comfortable with? And, and just keep practicing. It all takes practice. IEP meetings, there's a lot of parts to it. So, they'll get used to it over time. And then you can just assure them that they're in control of their own level of participation. So really going to them and asking, okay, you're doing this, would you be comfortable with participating on this level? And asking them for ways that they would want to increase. Somebody had shared, have someone talk for them, like a family member, because they're shy. But yeah, you can look into, maybe a student would be comfortable sharing with their parent or another family member what their concerns are. And I've even seen where maybe a family member helps a student to create some type of one-page document to kind of share, these are my concerns, these are my strengths, these are things I like about school. These are things that I kind of want to see change. These supports are working or these aren't. And just kind of have like a brief document that we would share their concerns. So we're going to watch a video on how to participate in your IEP meeting. And this is just a couple-minute video.
Speech and language disability, emotional disability, other health impairment. My counselors, my teachers, mom and dad. My mom, my social worker, my gym teacher, Megan, my mom and my teachers.
My learning strengths are being independent.
I'm into photography. I like to cook. Taking down notes, asking questions, and writing. My learning strengths is math. I'm like more of a visual learner, being a leader and helping others.
I don't give up easily.
Some of my learning challenges are reading books.
My struggles is participating in class and asking for help.
Working in groups and solving some math problems.
Well, my IEP, I get extra time on tests, and I have the ability to have two teachers in a room for one teacher teaching, the next one helping me with whatever I don't understand.
Calculator, extra time, and note taker.
Getting one-on-one time with a teacher, just me and that teacher.
Reading out loud, using pictures.
5-minute breaks so I don't get anxiety.
I'm getting passages read out loud to me. One of my short-term goals is to graduate high school and go to college.
Getting my high school diploma.
Passing all my classes and going to college.
To graduate high school.
To get my diploma and to get my license. I want to be a sneaker designer.
To become a psychiatrist.
To start a business.
Become an EMT.
Cosmetology, fashion, and entertainment.
I want a career in photography.
An early childhood education teacher.
Forensic, solving crimes, CSI unit.
Having 2 cars in a big house.
Some things I need to do is finish high school and go to a 4-year college.
I need to learn how to stay focused.
Finish getting my credits to graduate high school.
Get a degree in business.
Attending college or trade school.
Sign up for Access VR and get training.
Support from my family, friends. To believe myself.
Okay, so that video just kind of walks through, that might be a good video to show students or, as professionals, it can kind of help us think about what approach we could take with students as far as preparing them for IEP meetings. So that could be a great resource. Resources are listed on this page. Again, I will email out those resources this week between now and Friday. And then you want to think about, how do you know if it was a success for a student participating in their meeting? So, there are things you can look at. The student participated in making a decision. That would be a success. A student disagreed. That can be seen as a success too. Maybe they think if an accommodation or support or something is brought up and they disagree, they're advocating for themselves. Maybe they're saying, that doesn't really work for me. Let's change that. I don't agree that that's helpful. That can be a success. And then a student sharing something that's important to them is a success for them participating in their meeting. The meeting remaining positive and in tone is a success. Students suggesting goals and even requesting a goal to be removed can be, a huge success. Student feeling heard is success. And then, the student being able to share or communicate in a way that was comfortable for them. These are all ways to know that, student participation in the IEP meeting was successful. So we're at the end of the presentation, so I do want to open it up for Q&A. I am going to go ahead and stop the recording now.